The following program contains explicit Christian values. If you suffer from the notion that all views deserve respect, Randall may not be right for you. Check with a progressive.
I love to laugh, ha, 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 loud and long and clear. I love to laugh, ha, ha, ha. It's getting worse every year when Barry makes me laugh. Ha, 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 ha. The more I'm filled with glee, the more the glee, the more Barry can abuse me. The more Barry can seduce me, the more Barry can deceive me. President Obama, you're so funny.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. The only TV host arrested more times than Mahatma Gandhi, Randall Terry.
Man, I'm telling you, I have not laughed that hard in so long. Like Mary Poppins said, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. I'm starting to warm up a little bit to President Obama. Maybe he's not so bad after all. He made me laugh. I'm going to tell you more about that and the incredible power of laughter in the political realm. You're going to be blessed, I promise you. First, a word from the granny. She's funny too.
You must know how evil those dogs, the Jews, were. And Muhammad, he sliced off their heads. And for that, we Muslims are very and eternally grateful. Muhammad, the man of peace.
The more I laugh, the more Barry can deceive me. The more Barry can deceive me. Oh, I feel good. I really do.
The Bible says that a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. And some medicines are better than others. Some of them can get you just a little bit on the tipsy happy side. And I recently had the joy of being at the correspondence dinner in which President Obama made fun of himself. Conan O'Brien gave a hysterical speech. It was a great night. And I came away thinking, Obama's not so bad. I really did. I thought, anyone who can deliver lines this good, anybody who can be this self-effacing, he just can't be all that bad. And if you're a regular viewer of the program, you know that I've been pretty hard on President Obama at points. But something happened to me. Something happened to me with the power of laughter. Now, in case you missed it, let me show you some of the clips. Steven Spielberg did a spoof. What you're about to see is a spoof, but it's funny. Go ahead, Lane, roll this.
Well, I was thrilled that Lincoln was a success, and as I was thinking about what to do next, in the middle of the night, I woke up and it hit me. Obama. I mean, the guy's already a lame duck, so why wait? Picking the right actor to play Obama, that was the challenge. I mean, who is Obama really? We don't know. We never got his transcripts, and they say he's kind of aloof. So I needed someone who could dive in and really become Barack Obama. And as it turns out, the answer was right in front of me all along. Daniel Day-Lewis. He becomes his characters. Hawkeye from Last of the Mohicans, and Bill the Butcher from Gangs of New York, and Abraham Lincoln in Lincoln. And you know what? He nailed it.
Was it hard playing Obama? I'll be honest, yeah, it was. This accent took a while. Hello, Ohio! Hello, Ohio! I love you back. Look, let me be clear about this. The cosmetics were challenging. I mean, you wouldn't believe how long it takes to put these ears on in the morning. I don't know how he walks around with these things.
But once we had Daniel to play Obama, we had to cast the rest of his team. And I think we've got some pretty terrific performances.
Working with a legend like Daniel is intimidating, but he makes everyone better. You know, without him, I never could have played Joe Biden. Literally. Hi, I'm Joe Biden.
The hardest part, trying to understand his motivations. I mean, why did he pursue healthcare first? What makes him tick? Why doesn't he get mad? If I were him, I'd be mad all the time. But I'm not him. I'm Daniel Day-Lewis.
So, I mean, come on, that is just funny. And the fact that the leader of the free world, clearly the most famous man in the world, and arguably the most powerful man in the world in a political military sense, the fact that he can make fun of himself like that just shows he's probably a pretty decent guy after all. We have time to roll one more clip, right? All right, let's roll those two back to back, all right, Lane? Because they're both good.
They suggested that I should start with some jokes at my own expense, just to take myself down a peg. I was like, guys, after 4.5 years, how many pegs are there left? These days I look in the mirror and I have to admit, I'm not the strapping young Muslim socialist that I used to be.
Now, there you have it. Taking it on the chin. I'm not the strapping young socialist that I used to be. That's just funny. If we are going to get along as a republic, all right, if we're going to come together, I think that laughter is one of the best ways to do it. Now, I've got a lot to talk about in today's program. So I'm gonna take a break because when we come back, I want to show you some historic footage as well as show more clips from President Obama's monologue. And I'm just telling you, it's funny. And this might be the place where we could find some common ground. Laughter. Don't go away.
Like I'm out in California, we're at a fundraiser, we're having a nice time. I happen to mention that Kamala Harris is the best looking attorney general in the country. As you might imagine, I got trouble when I got back home. Who knew Eric Holder was so sensitive?
My mother used to read tea leaves for her friends. I must have picked up some of her ability myself, because I can read things in alphabet soup, like Randall Terry's name, for example.
Every day in America, over 3,500 babies are torn apart by abortion. Shouldn't all babies, like this living, unborn child, have the right to life? Baby killing will only end when Americans see the truth of what abortion does to innocent children. You can help end this Holocaust by showing the truth of abortion in your area with a Face the Truth tour. Go to facethetruthamerica.com to set up a Face the Truth tour in your area. The babies and their mothers will be eternally grateful. In the 1980s, banks introduced designer checks. When my buddy George Johnson inquired at the bank, they had nothing for pro-lifers. So the Johnsons created beautiful pro-life bank checks showing babies with a strong pro-life message. You can speak out for life with every check you write, whether personal or business checks. Be a voice for babies with these pro-life checks. Go to prolifecheckguy.com to see more. That's prolifecheckguy.com. He will execute judgment among the nations, filling them with corpses. He will shatter chiefs over the wide earth. All right, I have to stop this nonsense. My wife says to me regularly, Randall, don't do that. You're going to confuse the viewer. So in case you wondered, when you saw the little lines going across the screen, he's lying. He'll fess up later. That was the truth. What I want to use this program for is to inoculate you. To inoculate you. And hopefully to give you some discernment. All right? I want you to take, well, you know what? Look at these pictures. Look at these images. What do these people have in common? Here's the Burger Court. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt. Barack Obama. Joseph Stalin. Winston Churchill. Mao Zedong. Well, there's several things that all of them have in common. First of all, and perhaps most importantly for this discussion, they look good. They're in a nice suit. They have a nice smile. Joseph Stalin. And you know what we should do? Let's do this. Roll that little clip, if you will, of Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin together. Look at them smiling. Look at them laughing together, carrying on. On the right-hand side of your screen, you've got one of the most tyrannical murderers in all of human history, and certainly in the last century. Scholars estimate that Stalin oversaw the brutal murder of 25 to 30 million people. And in case you don't get it, Stalin murdered more people under his regime, excuse me, than Adolf Hitler did under his. Stop and think about that. Stalin murdered more people than Hitler. All right? Now, Roosevelt was the father of American socialism, helped to pave the way for the U.S. government to become our caretaker from cradle to grave. Roosevelt still rules us from his grave, all right? And then, of course, you had Winston Churchill sitting there. And of the three of them, Churchill smiled the least. He was the most gruff. He was the most serious, the most somber. Now, I'm going to give you a quick history lesson, and there is a point to all of this. All right? You know what? I'll tell you the point up front, then I'll prove my point. The point is this. We have been seduced by articulate, handsome, or in the case of women, beautiful, smiling politicians and Supreme Court judges to the point where we have lost our ability to discern good from evil when it comes to their policies. Not only are all those people that I showed you in the photographs handsome, well-dressed, sometimes smiling, but all of them have had an enormous impact on public policy, the law, what is permissible and what is illegal in this country. Do you realize right now it is a criminal act to try and save a baby from being murdered? If you know that a child is about to be murdered in the street and you intervene physically, you become a hero. But if you know that a child is being murdered in an abortion mill and you try to go in and physically intervene, you are arrested for a crime. Okay? So all of those people that I showed you, not with the exception of a couple of the good guys like Churchill, Teddy Roosevelt, all of them have perpetuated crimes against innocent people, against liberty, and against property. And they pulled it off because they were smiling, because they were laughing. The American ambassador to Russia wrote that when he met with Stalin, he felt like he was so endearing and so warm-hearted that, and he talked about his big brown eyes. He said that a small child would probably feel totally safe to just crawl up into his lap as if he were a grandfather. That's how seductive Stalin was. And by the time that footage was taken with Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill, Stalin had already murdered millions of Ukrainians from 1932 to 1933. Scholars estimate it could be 3 million, 5 million, 7 million. The high number was 10 million a few years ago. In other words, they don't even know how many millions of people Stalin murdered. But there he is laughing. There he is smiling. I've got to take a break. When we come back, how you and I need to learn to think, okay? I'll quote you a Bible verse or two when I come back for those of you who are into the scriptures, like me. Well, I know my Bible.
I recognize that this job can take a toll on you. I understand second term, need a burst of new energy, try some new things, and my team and I talked about it. We were willing to try anything, so we borrowed one of Michelle's tricks.
Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. Hi friend, I'm Randall Terry. George Washington said, "It is impossible to rightly govern a nation without God and the Bible." Thomas Jefferson said, "A wise and frugal government which shall leave men free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned, this is the sum of good government." Welcome back, friend. Let me read to you from the scriptures. "Now these be the last words of David. David the son of Jesse said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said, the Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was on my tongue. The God of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me, he that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. Now think about this. David was a shepherd. David was the psalmist. He refers to himself here as the psalmist. Many of us embrace David in our worship, in our songs, in our prayers, because of the enormous impact that his psalms have had on the human race. All right? Probably the most famous psalm ever written, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," etc. That's one of the Psalms of David. We love singing his psalms, but we forget that he was a king. He was a monarch. He was the leader of the military, all right? He was the chief executive in the Israeli structure. And when God spoke to him, right, his last words, David said, God said to me, he that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. Justice is defined by God, all right? The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. We must have righteous men and women in office, and evidently it matters to God because that's what God said to David. He that rules over men must be just. He must follow my laws. Now, I want you to think with me for a minute. Think of the ills that are destroying this country from the inside out. Got child killing, homosexual marriage, pornography, socialism, godless education, birth control given to teenagers without parental knowledge or consent, the loss of property rights, the attempted theft of our right to keep and bear arms, the flood of garbage on TV. I mean, really and truly, the list, it's not quite endless, but it feels that way. America is dying on the installment plan. And how did every single one of those ills come to us? Every one of them came either through the courts or through our elected officials or through both. In other words, those ruling have not ruled justly. They have not ruled in the fear of God. That is why this country is dying. It's been a top-down corruption. When we come back from this break, I'm going to do an altar call. I think you're going to find it surprising.
But some things are beyond my control. For example, this whole controversy about Jay-Z going to Cuba. It's unbelievable. I've got 99 problems and now Jay-Z's one.
President Obama is the first case of polio since the widespread use of the Sabin and Salk vaccines. Infantile paralysis.
Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today.
Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Sir Winston Churchill.
Welcome back, friend. If I was going to do an altar call, it would be something like this. God's hand is on some of you to be in the ministry. And I want you to consider coming forward, if I was in the church, and coming to this altar and saying, God, I offer myself to you to be in the ministry. Now, by the way, I'm not talking about a Sunday school teacher, missionary, pastor, evangelist. I mean, think about it. You've heard altar calls at a church for these various ministries, have you not? How many times have you heard an altar call to become a lawyer so that you could become a judge? How many altar calls have you heard for you to come forward so that you could be in government? That's the ministry. What do you mean that's the ministry, Randall? Let me read to you from the scriptures. Romans chapter 11. It said, "For rulers are not a terror of good conduct, but bad. Would you have no fear of him who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you'll receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. He is the servant of God to execute his wrath on the wrongdoer." Verse 6, "Therefore, for the same reason you also pay taxes, for the authorities are ministers of God, attending to this very thing." They're ministers of God. The King James uses the word ministry more frequently. Because we have abandoned the civil realm is in chaos. But God says it's the ministry. And if civil servants, all right, judges, politicians, are ruling justly, ruling in the fear of God, then as the scripture says, you have justice in the earth. Why don't you consider heeding that call to the ministry to become a judge or a politician and raise your children to do so? Talk to you again.
I recognize that this job can take a toll on you. I understand second term, need a burst of new energy, try some new things, and my team and I talked about it. We were willing to try anything, so we borrowed one of Michelle's tricks.